of, I picked this up from the news the other day, latest figures from the ONS, just looking at what inflation has done just in this short period of time over the last couple of years. Going to the supermarket, it's like what was £100 now literally feels like 50 or 60 pounds. Are you right? Am I right with that? Yeah. And at the same time, you've got this heat coming up in terms of interest rates going up. So it's really felt pretty horrible for most of us. But people are still buying property. People are still getting onto the property ladder. People are still recognizing and realizing that, you know what, whatever it is I need to do, because at any given time, even when we think about it, there's always something that's not quite working well for individuals. But there are always those few who say, you know what, I'm going to go and do it. And I wanted to talk to you about one of the very first things that you can do to purchase a property, the right to buy mortgage. How many know of or have a council flat or a council house, or know family who live in a council property? And sometimes you think, oh, you know, I'm just a council tenant, but actually this is one of the biggest gifts, I want to say, because you get a big discount when you're purchasing this council property. Many people I speak to say, oh, I'm just waiting to save up my deposit first before I come to you. And I'm like, you don't need any deposit when you are a council tenant. Once you get the right to buy from the council, in effect, let's say that your property is worth 100,000 and they give you a discount based on the years that you've lived in that property or that flat, and they might sell it to you for 60,000. That 40,000 difference is in effect your deposit. So literally, you're jumping onto the property ladder without putting any money down. How many of you like the sound of that? Yeah? And after 5 years, for the first 5 years, if you decide to release equity or do anything to it other than improving the actual property itself, you will get some penalties. So you just don't do it. You wait until 5 years, then you can start to release equity, purchase other properties. So it's literally a free gift of money that you're given by having that. The right to acquire is when you are living in a housing association house. So similar to a discount that you get with the council, but it's a lot smaller. And it's a way for anyone in a housing association property to jump onto the property ladder. Then we have shared equity schemes. How many of you managed to jump on with the Help to Buy scheme that just finished this year? Help to Buy scheme. Everyone was looking at that thinking, oh my gosh, I've got to jump on, I've got to get on. It kept us really busy during COVID. And the key worker schemes, those are another way that, how many of you are key workers in here, by the way? Any key workers? Police? You're not a key worker. You're a key worker? Yes, awesome. And so ever so often, there are many incentives that are put together for key workers to get property. And what they might say, I remember a family member in the past, they gave them 30% to go towards the deposit, but they also take a stake in the property. So like the previous Help to Buy scheme, where they take 20% ownership and they give that to you. So it's another way of just jumping and getting onto that ladder. The disadvantage maybe is you're not able to then release equity out of it until you've settled that amount with them. So you want to buy up to 100% of the share over the period of time. Recently, we've had someone like Skipton come up with 100% mortgages. Oh. Yeah, that particular mortgage, which caused, I guess, a bit of a stir earlier in the year, is they would look at the fact that you're renting already at the moment, and if the mortgage is about the same payment as the rent, they would give you sort of an equivalent mortgage because you've been affording 1,200 rent anyway, so that mortgage you should be able to afford. So it's just something else that they're trying to put on there to encourage first-time buyers. Then we have your standard ordinary mortgage where you save up for a deposit. The bigger deposit you have, the better interest rate that there is out there. So those are the sort of first round types of mortgages when you're purchasing your first property. Then after that, after a few years, house has appreciated a little bit, and you think, hey, we want to go and start getting another property, but we don't want to let go of our old one. And that's called a let to buy property. So you let out your old home. Sometimes you release some equity that you then use as a deposit to go and purchase your next home. So you're now starting to get a taste of that investment element on there. And these are very common, a bit of a shock for many people, because sometimes it's, you hope it's not as stressful, but it can actually be quite stressful. And it has been in the last few years with interest rates changing, affordability not quite working out. So you think you've got it and then you don't have it. But, if you're persistent and you're focused and you know what you want to do, I always say to people, to my clients, do you still want to do it? Let's just go. Let's be patient. Let's go. Oh, is it going to work out? Oh, I don't know. But, our job as advisors is to keep trying until we get the best deal that's available for you. And then we have your buy-to-let mortgage. And typically, at the moment, you can now get, I think there was a period in the last couple of years where all the 15% deposit buy-to-let mortgages were not really there. But now they started coming back up again. Don't know for how long. We're in that sort of period of time where things are chopping and changing ever so quickly. But a buy-to-let mortgage is you coming up with, say, your 15 or 25% deposit, purchasing, saying, I want to buy this house, I want to put some tenants into it. And most people, especially when they're starting out, would put that mortgage on an interest-only basis to try and keep the costs of it as low as possible. Because now you're going to be the landlord. And if anything goes wrong, guess who they're coming to? Coming to you. So you want to build up a little bit of that extra surplus to sort of count for those sort of contingency things on there. Second charge loans, currently you might be in a position where people use this is when you took out your first mortgage, credit was absolutely fine. You went through a bit of a blip. You got a parking ticket on Dartford Tunnel, got a few CCJs on your file, and your existing lender doesn't want to deal with you anymore. And so you would maybe go and approach someone who would give you another mortgage, a second mortgage, but they're taking a second charge. So let's say Halifax is the first person who has charge on your property. You now go and say, hey, Mr. Shawbrook or someone, yeah. Shawbrook, can you please lend me £15,000 to do up my kitchen? It's in a really dire state. So that's now a second charge. So they have second dibs on your property. So it's still a type of mortgage, but you find that the interest rate tends to be a little bit more. So some people are in this position and they think, oh, there's no hope for me because my bank said no. When you come to us and it is a valid reason that you want to borrow on, we can help you find lenders who would cover those areas. Commercial mortgages, any of you in business here with property portfolios? Anyone yet? So yeah, this is when your business actually purchases property for whatever it is that you're doing. In the last few years within our community, we've had a lot of people going into supported housing, and I know Mo's going to talk a little bit about that. It's a bit of a nightmare sometimes to get a right mortgage for that because they're vulnerable clients staying in that property. So a lot of lenders don't necessarily like it, but there are lenders who will say, yeah, we'll take the risk on there. And then bridging loans. I know I recently had a first-time buyer go to auction to buy a property. How many of you have ever bought a property at auction? How was the experience?
It can be a bit, yeah, I had to take some time off.
Yeah. It can be pretty stressful. And, this is why I was like, why did you go to auction? It all sounds like a lovely, you come to a meeting like this, you hear about the ability to buy property at an auction, you think, yeah, I'm going to go and do it. You put an offer on, then you're in a contract. And it was, sad to say, a lot of prayers on the phone, a lot of, encouraging, because now you've put your deposit and they kept wanting more, and if she wasn't going to meet the deadline by a certain time, you could lose everything, So it's not for the faint-hearted, I would say. Once you're seasoned and experienced, you could possibly start to venture out into that. But if you're a property developer already, or you've got some DIY skills in you and you can see potential, there's definitely ways of getting that money quickly, because an auction wants that turnaround pretty quickly. And then once you've got the bridging loan, it normally lasts for about a year. And then you would then try and find, once you've done up the property to good standard, then you can go back onto the high street and get a mortgage to get that back onto proper lending there. So some key things to consider. What is my credit rating? How is my credit rating? How many of you here know what the credit rating is like? Lift up your hands. You check it regularly. Please register with Credit Karma. Just keep an eye on it. Your credit report is your financial passport. How secure do you keep your passport, guys? Very secure. Don't let anyone mess with that. I had stories of, even in relationships, someone says, oh, do you love me? Manipulation. Do you really love me? Take this loan in my name. And, there's a lot of bullying that goes on. And before you know it, you're lumbered with that big debt, and someone doesn't pay you. It can cause a lot of distress and stress. If you're not comfortable, it's your passport. Would you give somebody your passport to just go on a trip somewhere? Don't know what they're doing, so really guard that properly. Can I afford it? Really asking that question, I know we come from a community where we love things. We like to be seen. People have got to know that I've arrived. I can't be just, they have to know. And, a time like now, things can change, interest rates can go up. Are you comfortable with the payments? Do things that are comfortable for you, because your health is your wealth. And I know Jack's going to talk about that. There's some stresses that we put ourselves through that are unnecessary. If you are taking on a big chunk of debt that you never even get to sleep in that bed at night because you need to do all the hours that God puts on earth, is it still worth it? I don't know. You might think it is, but who are you doing it for? So really just, when the lenders say it's not affordable, they're saying that for a reason, because it isn't, according to what you have. You will be pushed to edges that are not necessarily right for you by doing so. What is my immigration status? A lot of people who've recently come into the UK. Any new people who've relocated to the UK recently? No? Okay, welcome. Thank you. Yeah, and the good news is, you can get a mortgage pretty soon as well. One thing you have to just do is work on your credit reports. You can, as long as you have a 10% deposit, there are lenders who will credit score you and allow you to get a mortgage. And if you're coming, where did you live before? Where did you live before?
Kenya.
You lived in Kenya. Okay. So I know typically in Africa, most people who own a property, they own it outright. They don't do mortgages. So coming here, it's like, whoa, what is this? And paying the amount of money that you're paying for rent. If you actually have money to put down as a deposit, just build up your credit report, come and see us, and let's see, put a plan in place to actually purchase something for yourself there. And you can purchase property together with friends. Some lenders go up to four applicants together. So that's also something to consider on there. Are there any restrictive covenants on the property I'm about to buy? Something to think about as well. I remember quite a few months ago where someone wanted to, they bought a house and had big plans for it, but there was, those army bunker things, like a bunker, that's what it is, yeah. And it just changed the whole trajectory of what they wanted to do. It ended up costing them probably £100,000 more to do what they needed to do. So really just, before you buy a property, think, is this fit for purpose of what I want to buy it for? Is the location right for what I want to use it for? Do I want or do I need a broker for the journey? Your broker is your friend. That's where we're here for. It can be a pretty stressful period of time, but once you know what you're doing and you think you're savvy, I know a lot of online stuff can do it for you, but having a broker is quite good in that we walk you through the journey And we almost take the blow and some of the stress out of, oh, they've asked for this. Is it going to go through? Oh, my children need to move. I see somebody I know there and I'm meeting for the first time. She's one of my beautiful clients and she's smiling because, yeah, we've been on journeys together. So absolutely wonderful to see you too. And yeah, I was going to give a quick case study about this John Siwanda here, who's a 30-year-old IT professional. You know, his dad, they lived in a council house together with his father, who passed away. And his dad, during his lifetime, never saw the value of buying a house, but he put him on the property. So when the dad died, he took on the council house as well. So he got an element of the discount on there and managed to purchase a house that was worth 200,000, 450,000. Hey, isn't that good? You know, and some of these discounts are really that good in really good locations, especially in London. I don't know why they do just amazing discounts in London. So his initial investment was nothing, just to buy a house with zero money. How many of you would want that? You know? So we're living in a council house. When you are living in it, can be a bit, but hey, there's some perks on the other side of there. And so, you know, he had a mortgage of 150,000, fees and everything, probably had to put around 2,500 for broker fees, rate fees, valuation, all those little bits and pieces. And then a few years later, the property had appreciated. He'd done the house up a little nicer. You know, once you're a homeowner, you start feeling a little more, ooh, gotta do this up, do that up. And the house price appreciated and rose to 250. This is just a case study. And his balance had gone down to about 130. So he now had equity in the property. And decided, had been going to a lot of workshops, seminars, you know, mentoring programs, working with other people, then decided, actually, I want to get into property investment. How many of you here are already in property investment? You're already in it? Fantastic. How many of you would want to get into it? Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, so then he decided to say, you know what, I'm going to take some equity out of that property and I'm going to use it to buy other properties. And he took out 100,000, yeah? And some, because there are other charges, stamp duty, all these other costs. But I'm just simplifying this case study so you can see how multiplication of properties can take place. Sometimes we get this, where people say, I'm going to a mentoring program and to be mentored to get into property, I'm being charged £20,000. And I'm thinking, you don't need to pay £20,000 to get mentored. Bring the £20,000 and get the property, you know? So it literally is something like this, where now he can go and buy an extra 2 properties with that money. Does that make sense? So it takes 50,000 splits the 100,000 into 2, goes and buys another property worth 200,000 and another one with 200,000. So from that one baby, another 2 have come out. Can you see that? Yeah. So now he has 3 properties, and just from that first significant discount. So when you're younger, there's more time to actually do this without feeling pressure, because you, by releasing more equity and putting debt onto your main home mortgage, it's got to be affordable. And when you're younger, you're still working, you're still earning good income, you can manage that. And now those 2 properties, guess who's paying the mortgage on that? Tenant. So now you've got something that's enjoying potential capital appreciation, as well as a rental income that's hopefully sorting out the mortgage. So, you know, less work for you. And, you know, property is definitely one of those things that over time can actually give you a real boost in your asset value. And yeah, if you're there and you're like, I'm ready, or I want to look into this, our team is there. You can book into my diary. We offer free consultations initially, and then you can actually book a session with myself to talk a little bit more about this. And always read the fine print. Can you even see it there? You know, one thing about property, failure to keep up with your payments on the mortgage can actually lead to your property being repossessed. And in the last few years, I've heard quite a few stories. I think places where this tends to happen is when relationships break down, yeah, and there's bad communication. If you ever find yourself in that position, try and be as amicable as possible, because it can really just mess both of you up for longer than necessary, you know. If you're married or you have a partner, talk to each other about finances. I hear people say, oh, I don't know, he does this thing, I do my own thing. You can't afford that when you're married. One day, the cows will come home to roost and it'll affect you. There's stories, many stories I've heard of people having bailiffs knocking at the door when the spouse is gone, because debt was taken on, extra debt was taken on without them knowing. And then you're mourning the loss of your loved one, and lo and behold, you actually could be at risk of losing valuable things that you've built up together as well. So transparency, if you are in any financial commitment and agreement with anyone, is really important. And yeah, seek advice. It's always a good thing to do.